Soccer fans around the globe, welcome back on into another episode of Between the Post. I'm your host, Jason Mass, and joined every week by good friend Matt Lawrence. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going well. It's always good to recap a winning Premier League week, and yeah, it's really fun. And I think we've got some good angles for this week as well.
Yeah, sir, I think we certainly do after talking before the show. We're excited to recap last week, as he said, and also break down all 10 matchups while giving you leans and bets for all these games. Before you do that, you may have noticed a nice little shiny logo right above our heads. We've got our friends BetUS. They're now sponsoring Between the Posts each and every single week. Go ahead and give them a check out. In this video description, you'll find a link. You can go ahead and sign up with them. You can never have enough tools in your toolbox, and BetUS is another one that'll provide you guys. They have, if we're being honest, not as good as promos and boosts as FanDuel and DraftKings, but amazing sign-up bonuses. So if all you guys do is sign up to go ahead and get that free money, do that. I know Matt and I would be grateful and thankful if you use that referral code down in the video description. With that being said, let's go on in now into match week 2. But before I do that, we want to do a little thing that they do on YouTube. You guys watch soccer games all the time where you get 90 minutes of games and a little 90-second recap. So that's what we're going to do. We're each going to take an open mic. We get 90 seconds to recap match week 1 however we want. Matt, you want to go first? You want me to?
I'll go first. Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, last week 2-1, feel good about it. For example, the one thing that caught my eye is just how many goals there were. There was an extraordinary amount of goals last week, and I expect that to continue here up until the international break. Good weather means more goals in this league, and yeah, I mean there just isn't a ton of really strong defensive sides in this league. So attacking. Leeds were naive once more. Could not believe kind of their setup and how they approached the match at Old Trafford. That really caught my eye, and it's kind of cooled my expectations for them. I know I talked about the first 9-10 weeks of their schedule. I might be a little bit more hesitant now, but yeah, Newcastle West Ham over 2.5 comes in easily with 6 goals. That was fantastic, and that's just kind of going back into the memory bank and knowing what works and what I've hit in the past. And yeah, Liverpool to score in both halves. It wasn't clean really, but they got the job done anyhow on the road against Norwich, and that's what it's all about in this league.
All right, good stuff. With my 90 seconds, I can't not start off talking about Manchester United, top of the table, baby. We're sitting top of the table after a good 5-1 win up over Leeds, as Matt said. And we may have had the player of the week last week in Paul Pogba. Filthy assist there to Bruno Fernandes on that first one. Second thing I want to get into is how about Brentford on that double chance. Told you guys on this show I wanted no part of betting that, but that's why you got to follow Matt and myself both on Twitter. He's putting out a lot of great live bets, and I also put out Brentford on the double chance over Arsenal at -130. We got news that Lacazette and Aubameyang were out. That's where their goals are coming from. So just make sure you're following us on Twitter for any late, ads that we may have to each one of our cards due to lineup changes. And that Brentford nice 2-0 easy win. I also went 2-3 on my bets last week. All 3 were at plus money. So the 2 winners, bang bang, you win up over a unit with my bets. Of course, I hit Leeds United, both teams to score and over 2.5. And then I also got that Liverpool up over team total over 2.5. As soon as Salah had that on his left, where he was in that box, it was on his left foot. As long as it wasn't caught up under him, that was going to be a goal all day long, and Salah stroked that through right there. Also on my fantasy football this week, Bruno and Antonio carried my team, so 1-0 in fantasy football, and fans are back. How cool is that to see fans? Brentford starting off rocking grounds right there over there at Brentford. And how about this? You mentioned all the goals. No draws last week. 10 games, 10 winners, and 10 losers. No draws. Fantastic. Premier League Match Week 1. Let's go ahead and get on into Match Week 2. I'm going to go ahead and let you serve you up, man. It's your team. You can take the floor. Liverpool versus Burnley. What you got here?
Yeah, we've got Burnley traveling to Anfield, and yeah, it's going to be a rocking crowd there at Anfield. I mentioned last week that I had an open parlay on Liverpool to beat Norwich and then Liverpool to beat Burnley. So I've got that in pocket right now, -160, -165, and yeah, I mean, now they're -120 or -525 to win this match. So I feel pretty good about it. I think that they should definitely be able to get the job done here. I don't really expect many changes in the lineup. They probably roll out the same back four with Tsimikas, Van Dijk, Matip, and Trent Alexander-Arnold. And yeah, it should be a good showing. I think Burnley will sit back, sit tight for as long as possible. But yeah, I mean, looking at Liverpool, they should be able to decide this match in the first 45 minutes. So I think that if you're looking again at a Liverpool to score in both halves, or a Liverpool halftime, full time, or even a team total, something like that, they should be able to get the job done. Burnley's defense is a little bit more rock solid than Norwich, but and they will float balls into the box and whatnot. But yeah, I just see Liverpool being far too strong for them, and this is kind of like a 2-3-0 for me. And yeah, I don't have a bet on this one yet, but I lean the same bet as last week, Liverpool to score in both halves.
Yeah, and you've got that great parlay, as you said, there live right now. Yeah, I mean, I was high on Liverpool coming in the season. I didn't see anything last week against Norwich to get me off of Liverpool. They looked excellent. They're going to be a title threat. They'll be right up there. Definitely a top four team, and I think they'll be competing for that title. Burnley, we know, they'll be relegation fighting much of the campaign. They'll probably have enough in, their defensive right there, and Sean Dice, just their defensive, system and tactics that they put out. But they'll still be a relegation fighting team, and it's kind of what Burnley is. Anfield's going to be rocking, folks. Anfield's going to be absolutely rocking. We talk about these grounds and how good it is to have fans back. That alone will carry Liverpool in their, home open there on their season. So to me, it's don't overcomplicate things. I think you had a good bet last week in Liverpool to score in both halves. So I'm going to go ahead and cherry pick your bet this week. And that's my lean and bet for this game is Liverpool to, score in both halves right there. So let's just move it on. That one to me, and as you said it, that was pretty straightforward. The next one we got here is we got Villa. We got going up against Newcastle. I thought Villa struggled. I kind of talked about it leading up into match week 1. I thought they were going to struggle until they kind of figure out what they're going to do with the loss of Jack Grealish. I mean, they needed a late penalty. That scoreline's kind of 3-1. It ends up being 3-2, but it was a little, late penalty, and that's against newbies, Watford. I mean, Newcastle, I know you're going to talk about it. They're going to score goals. That's what Newcastle's done. If they're healthy, they're putting goals in the back of the net with their front line and who they've got. So 2 of the last 3 games, or head-to-heads between these teams have been in draws. Villa won the other one 2-0. My lean in this game would be Newcastle draw no bet is at plus 210. Though I see this game maybe being a draw. Maybe Newcastle squeaks it out. So give me a free roll of draw no bet at plus 210 for Newcastle.
Yeah, in this one, I'm just kind of going back to what I think works here, and that's and this is kind of the only negative really about this is looking at Steve Bruce's comments a bit, talking about how they just weren't really solid enough defensively. So I hope that they don't resort back to a more Steve Bruce style and really try and sit back. But I just don't see it. I mean, they're going to want to play on the counterattack. Villa will have more possession. I think that Villa probably squeaks this one for me, just because I think that last week was kind of that, that testing, tinkering really, if you will, with the formations. And this time around, I think that they'll have more of an attacking setup. And I mean, Newcastle's back 4 was in shambles last week from West Ham. They just got cut right open. Antonio had chances galore. Really, everyone did. So I'm just going back to the well here. I'm going both teams to score. I think that maybe Joe Willock gets inserted into this Newcastle lineup, and I'm a big fan of their front 4, and I just don't see their defense being solid enough. And Villa's defense is a little bit better. So, yeah, I would be more concerned with Newcastle scoring here than Villa. But, both teams to score at minus 125 or 1.8. I mean, that's something that I just want to continue to gobble up with Newcastle right now until, further notice, really.
Yeah, and you can't go wrong with that strategy, folks. I mean, if you find a bet that works, an angle that works for a team, you don't bet it until the wheels fall off. You may bet it until the wheel comes a little loose. So, yeah, both teams will score in a Newcastle game. I think you're right on to something right there. Let's move it on along now. We got Crystal Palace versus Brentford. Look, Palace was dominated by Chelsea. And that game was played in their half exclusively. Palace, I think they're going to be fighting for relegation. I'm not sure where you fall on Palace, but I think they're just going to be a relegation fighting team all season long. Brentford, to mention it, they beat up on Arsenal. There were times where Arsenal looked bad. I mean, they looked really bad. Couldn't get their foot kind of in that game. Maybe you can say that that's the season opener and Brentford being up in the crowd, but still, I mean, you're Arsenal. You're supposed to be one of these big clubs, and I thought Brentford pushed them around for large punts of that game. And again, I mentioned Noah Bungyang, no Lacazette, so maybe that played into them being able to score a goal. But Brentford, I say the one troubling thing about Brentford and this happened with no Lacazette, Noah Bunging, is they allowed the most shots in the box and the most shots overall by an opponent last weekend of all the Premier League clubs. So that has me a little bit worried, but I don't see what Palace can really do. Let's see what they do against a non-big boy. I mean, Chelsea is a big boy. They're always going to get pushed around. So let's see what Palace can do against Brentford here. I'm going to go both teams to score. I think Palace can get on the score sheet. I think Zaha can do it against this newbies here up in the Premier League. And I think Brentford, what they showed, I mean, with Tony and around him, they were bright. So I got both teams to score. You can get that at even money. You can get that at even money. So that'd be my lean in this game.
Yep. So I thought that Brentford played fantastically. I think that maybe some of those stats, when you're looking at Arsenal and how many shots they had, I mean, there wasn't a ton of clear-cut opportunities. So I thought that Smith Rowe was really the only one who brought it that day. And yeah, they just kind of laid an egg, and now they've got a really tough matchup coming with Chelsea at home. But for me here, I mean, I think that this is a team in Brentford that has cohesion, has chemistry. And now with Patrick Vieira coming in for Crystal Palace and being the manager there, I think that they're going to lack that kind of cohesion right now because I don't know what they want to do. I thought they were diabolical last week at Chelsea. I think that they needed to play much more solidly, and they tried to, again, like we talked about it in week one, just what are they going to do? Are they really going to try and be this team that wants to play on the front foot and play more, stylistically and have a little bit more flair? Because that is not Palace's MO. It's not who they are. And that's why I do have concerns, and I agree that I think that they're going to be relegation battlers all season long, especially here at the start. I would go with the cohesion here. I know that this is their first road match. I know that going to Selhurst Park is never easy. It's a tough place to go play, and Palace will be ready to go. But I would choose a team that just has a little bit more of that chemistry, that willpower right now. And I think that they're really behind their manager when you're looking at from the top of the club, from the board, all the way down to the last man. I think that they have what it takes here. I would be looking at Brentford to win at plus 190 here. I think that Brentford can do this. If you want to play it a little safer, Brentford draw no bet. But it's just I'm off of it just because it is their first road match, and I want to see kind of what they bring here. And Selhurst is difficult. But there's no doubt about it. If I have a good lean on this one, I think it's pretty strong with Brentford draw no bet, or if you want to really go for it, Brentford to win. I just don't see them getting beat here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, don't agree with that analysis at all one bit. Let's move it on. You can go first on this one. What are you going to think between Leeds and Everton, and how are you going to break this one down?
So I thought that Leeds were just naive. They United were amazing, but I think that they were just gifted so many
Yeah.
chances because Leeds just kept wanting to go after it and after it. I mean, right when they score the equalizer, you're like, oh my gosh, this is game on. This is going to be an old classic. And then they just resort to trying to just continue to almost play too offensively. And it cost them against, Pogba was just picking passes, 4 assists. He was definitely the man of the match and the Premier League player of the week for me. And yeah, so for this one, I see it very similarly, really. I think that Benitez will set Everton up solidly. I think that he'll make it more difficult. And if you're looking at numbers and where this line is going, I mean, Leeds were plus 115. Now Leeds plus 140. So I think that sharps are definitely betting Everton here. And I do agree with it just from what we saw last week. I think that Everton will play solid, similar to United. They'll play on the counter attack. And I think that they're going to score for sure here on the road against this Leeds defense. Yes, Calvin Phillips will come back into the game, I believe, here. I think he should start, which will be a big boost for Leeds, and that makes them a much more difficult side to play against. But I'm going back to a bet that it lost for me last year, but I just saw it. I watched the entire match, and I was scratching my head at the end of it. How did that not come in? I think that, Everton being able to play on the counterattack, Leeds being at home, getting that crowd to push them along. I think that we see both teams find the back of the net, and I think this one does go over the 2.5. So that's where I'm at. Minus 110, both teams are scoring over 2.5. I like it.
Yeah, I like that as well. And both of these clubs cashed both teams to score in over 2.5 in their respective games in Match League 1. I see goals, 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 kind of a lot of what you said. We obviously were on the both teams to score in over 2.5. Last week in a Leeds match, we were on that bet similar last season. So I'm certainly going to go back to the well. I mean, if Southampton scored on Everton, Leeds at home with their prowess and kind of what you said, they're just forward thinking all the time. Yeah, Leeds is going to get on the score sheet. So I see that. I definitely agree. And then Everton will get on the score sheet as well. I mean, Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison will get on there. I liked Townsend last week. Thought he looked pretty good. So, yeah, I just see goals in this game. And to me, it's another bet that I'm going to bet it until, before it falls completely apart. So I can't imagine this game not having 3 goals. So, yeah, Leeds, Everton, both teams to score and over 2.5. That's going to be the lean for me in this game as well. Let's go ahead now and jump over to Manchester City and Norwich. And seriously, it's just about, if you want to bet this game, it's just about finding the right bet that fits within your comfort zone of whatever. If you have a ceiling of minus 200, minus 150, whatever it is, it's just about finding the right angle that falls within your strategy, because everybody's going to be on Manchester City, and obviously rightfully so. Norwich is going to, maybe even not even score. That's what it's going to come back to. City's only going to get stronger. Kevin De Bruyne is going to come back into this side. Rodri's going to come back in. Stones and Walker likely going to come back in. So maybe a depleted lineup a little bit against Tottenham, where they were definitely for sure outplayed by Tottenham. I mean, let's give Spurs a lot of credit there. But they're going to be getting some of their big boys coming back into this lineup. It's their home opener. Again, Norwich didn't do really much against Liverpool. I mean, they only had 3 shots on target. One of them was really late. I think Allison was down on his knees. He was fighting. He was scrapping. He's keeping that thing out. So, yeah, Norwich didn't do anything. They're not going to do anything against, I think, a better ball possession team in Manchester City. So the angle I like is a bet that I wrote a lot of time last year in City wins is City win to nil. City win to nil. Wrote it last season. So that'll be for me in this game. What about for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a no bet for me here. Just because I do look at the past, and Norwich was able to pull off the shocker in this one 2 seasons ago, and it was a 3-2 fantastic match, one of the best matches of that season, and I I thought that they created some decent looks against Liverpool to where I could see them doing that again. I think that they'll have a couple of clear-cut opportunities against City, and it's just, can they put them away? If I had to bet on it, I would probably side with you that they don't score, but there is that caveat basically of I think that they're going to create a couple. This isn't going to be City's strongest 11. Still, I think that some of these players aren't going to be coming back yet, and I think that this presents an opportunity then for Norwich to maybe, I wouldn't say pull off a shocker here or anything, but to at least keep this competitive for quite some time. But yeah, this is one that's just, City minus 1,000 to win this match. It's been bet up. I kind of like City to win and both teams to score. You can find a pretty good price at that. Something tells me that Norwich might get on the score sheet here, but again, it's really just it's a complete stay away for me.
Yeah, once the sportsbook set odds at the kind of values they have, they're almost forcing you to stay away. No, win to nil, clean sheets. That is always the sweatiest of all sweatiest bets. I am nervous for that entire 90 because it only takes one dumb mistake, and Norwich or whatever team slips in a goal and it crashes your bet. So I'll be on the edge of my seat sweating that one. Let's move the action over now to Brighton. Versus Watford. I'll go ahead and go first here. Brighton, they got a good win against Burnley. I'll said it earlier. Burnley will be a relegation fighting team, but that doesn't mean I still don't like Burnley and respect them. Under 2.5 cashed a lot. We mentioned the number on last week's episode. So yeah, Brighton definitely got a good win, and that's a team that last season they were around the same standings. They'll be generally around the same standings. So they beat up who they needed to. Mentioned Watford there, beating Villa 3-2. Late penalty, kind of 3-1. But I trust Brighton more in attack, led by Maupay. I like him. Had him last season on my fantasy team, actually. Really like his production. I trust their defense and Dunk and Duffy more than anything that Watford could throw out. I think Brighton flexes their muscle here against newbies and Watford. At home, their home opener. I've got Brighton on that money line at minus 135. I think there's a lot of good value there on that money line with Brighton. So that's what my lean would be on this one.
Yeah, this one is tricky for me again. I didn't have a ton of opinions on Watford last week. I thought that they caught Villa at the right time. We talked about that. We just really weren't interested in betting Villa whatsoever just because of what they put out there. Watford has a better idea of what their best starting 11 is. I thought that Ismaili Sarr was brilliant last week. I mean, he on the flanks was something to watch. He really caught the eye. I see goals here. I don't see any reason why. Like I just Brighton will create opportunities. We know, Watford are a pretty decent counterattacking side. I side with goals here, and when you're looking at either an over 2.5 at a plus 130 or an over 2.25 at basically plus 100 minus 103, I'm seeing at some places. I just don't see like I think that there's going to be 2 goals. So if you take the 2.25, you at least get half your stake back. Uh, I see goals. I don't want to bet on Brighton at this price range, just from what I saw last season, how many chances they can miss and how they can win an XG battle and still lose the match. But maybe Maupe and some of those guys, hopefully in the summer, have been working on their finishing, because if those guys can become clinical finishers, and he did score in match day 1, I mean, they could have a really fantastic season, Brighton. I think that they could be a top 10 team in this Premier League if those guys can get their boots firing. So yeah, for me, looking back at last week, seeing how many goals there were, I don't see any reason not to just go with goals here.
Love your thought and love your pick right there for that game. I think this game is on the NBC Sports Predictor contest. I think I got 3-1 in that one. So I like your angle right there in goals all day long, as I've got it at 3-1. Let's move it over now to Manchester United versus Southampton. I'll just touch on Southampton here. First of all, they better figure it out, or I think they'll be one of these clubs fighting for relegation. So when you decide to move on your top goal scorer from last season, you need to figure it out. You need to have a plan. So they're not a top half of the table. I know they started off bright last campaign, not expecting anywhere near that from them this season. So, and United, we touched on them, handled Leeds 5-1, Pogba player of the week. Looking like they're going to get Sancho, looking like they're going to get Varane. Lingard played. This team, actually, United played midweek against Burnley. Solskjaer wanted to work on the team's match fitness, so they did a closed-door friendly behind Burnley, and they beat Burnley 3-1. A lot of those players I mentioned, Sancho, Lingard, they got game time, they got minutes. So the fact that they played midweek, I'm expecting them to just come on in and be starting this week here. And I like that you can beat Burnley, a 3-1 team. Again, I have a lot of respect for Burnley, even though maybe how I think they'll finish up in the table. So to me, this is another easy one. You know who's going to win this game. It's what bet can you find. I like team total over 2.5 because you can get that at plus 180, folks. Plus 180. United's going to score goals. Or maybe a safer bet is kind of give yourself a free roll. You can get Man United -1, and that comes in at plus money at plus 105. So maybe that's the better bet, is essentially a free roll if you think they're going to win at plus 105. So how do you see this game unfolding, Matt?
So I'm on Man United and over 1.5 goals at plus 100. So very similar to how you are seeing this match. I think that Southampton won't be nearly as naive as Leeds were, and I can see them really sitting back here trying to muddy this thing up, make it as difficult as possible. But again, like if Southampton take a 1-0 lead like they did against Everton last week, United, the comeback kings of last season, they will come back and probably throw 2 or 3 past them and just put the foot on the gas and just go guns blazing. So I wonder how long it'll take United to find their way here. That's the only concern I have. I think that Southampton are going to sit way back. I just don't see them playing like the Southampton of old, kind of without Ings. I mean, this match last season, 9-0. I don't. They're not going to want to get embarrassed again like that. I mean, they've had 2 of those now over the past couple seasons with Leicester, United. They're going to sit way back. Can Hasenhüttl really just try and just muddy the waters here? I don't see it. I don't see how they do. I don't see how they can. So I think that United's team total cashes here. I do like the angle of the over, 2.5 for their team total at plus 180, plus 185. That's not a bad look. I mean, the overall match is at 2.5, which is kind of scratching my head a bit. I'm surprised this isn't at 2.75, but I just don't think the books are really expecting much from Southampton at all. Yeah, it's one of those, how do you complicate it? United should get the victory here on the road. So I've gone with, them and over 1.5. just in case if Southampton do score, I think the United will grab another one then. And yeah, it's plus 100. I've got to take a look at it. They looked really good last week. They're firing.
Yeah, you brought up a little bit of pain with me because I remember last year I was on Man U and under 4.5. Southampton gets that red card in the first like 5 minutes, and I knew once United got one, the floodgates were going to open. They got one around like 20, 25 minutes. I think that bet was sunk early on. So yeah, just a complete beat down obviously last game, but pain losing that bet. All right, let's move it over now to Wolves and Tottenham. You want to go ahead and take this one first?
Sure. It's one that I just don't have a great feel for. Spurs playing in the Conference League today. That's funny. So, what are they going to throw out today? I'll be keeping my eye on it. I'm sure it's a bunch of youngsters.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they're going to be, I think that Nuno will definitely be prioritizing, going back already to Molineux for his home return basically back there. And I think that he'll be keeping his eye on this Premier League match. And I think that they played City exactly how Leicester did in the Community Shield. We talked about it. They had the perfect blueprint for the match, and they played it. They outplayed City in a different style, and they were deserved to get those 3 points. Wolves didn't see a ton of them. Didn't really. They didn't impress. They got close to scoring late on against Leicester, but I see Spurs and Leicester very similarly. I think that those sides are carbon copies almost of one another, especially now with Nuno at the helm. They're going to stay solid. They're going to hit you on the break. They should have too much here for Wolves. I was surprised to see this one backtrack a little bit. I think Spurs were around plus 100. Now you can get a bigger price on them. Not necessarily agreeing with that. I see this as like a 1-0, 2-0, maybe a 2-1. But yeah, it's a pass. Spurs on the road. I think that they probably scrape it here, though. I would be on Spurs if I had to.
Yeah, that's spot on analysis right there, and started off with what you were talking about, Spurs, against Manchester City, just a perfect game plan, and then you add already that perfect game plan of how they're going about tactically changes week to week, obviously. But Nuno Santos knows this Wolves team. May not know the tactics because there's only one game of tape like we've all seen, but he's going to know the players. He's going to know what the players' strengths, what the players' weaknesses are, and that is going to be an advantage. He'll know how to attack that certain individual. So to me, you already got a Spurs team coming in here high of confidence. Nice win against Manchester City. They'll know this Wolves team, like I just said. There won't be a Kane, obviously, until that transfer situation gets sorted out. You do not risk an injury when you have a chance to sell for anywhere 150 plus $1 million. So Wolves with only 3 shots on target against Leicester. I don't think they're going to be, good earlier on as they're now trying to get their feet up under them with the new manager. They've got to get themselves sorted out. So I'm with you. I think Spurs do scrape it, but I don't have a lot of confidence in maybe betting that. But I do have confidence in, as what you were kind of saying in the tail end of yours, is a 1-0, 2-0. I got under 2.5. If I was to bet it, I could see this being cagey. The managers, the tactics that Nuno Santos will employ. I could see this one being a little cagey. So his home return, going back to Molineux. Yeah, go ahead and give me an under 2.5, but won't be putting my money on that game by any stretch. Next one we got.
Yeah, I mean, you're actually kind of just talking me in real quick, Jason. Like, when you say, he knows these Wolves players and everything, and I mean, what price are we looking at now? Because I know it has backtracked a little bit on Spurs. Let's just really quick.
Just on the money line.
So now they're at plus 140. I mean, that's gone. It's a similar move to Leeds and Everton. I agree with the Leeds and Everton move. I don't necessarily agree with this one. So now you're telling me I can get Tottenham in the draw no bet range at that minus 135, minus 140. When you talk about Nuno knowing these players from Wolves, I don't see Tottenham being beat here. I really don't.
I tell you what, if that draw no bet, I didn't know the line had moved quite drastically, like you just said. If that draw no bet's under my threshold of minus 150, I may end up tweeting that pick out and pulling the trigger. Yeah, I don't see.
That's one of those. Yeah, I think that's a lineup checker, and that could be added basically. Minus 150 right now but at other books it's at minus 140. So it's like it's getting in that bet range for me.
I do agree with you in terms of their lineup today, but is it at home or are they somewhere in Eastern Europe battling some small
I
club you've
think
never heard
they're
of?
I think they're in Portugal. They're either at
They're in
home, but I
Portugal.
know they
Okay,
play a Portuguese side. And let's see,
that helps. I mean, they're not going to far Eastern Europe,
they're
which
on the
is
road. Yeah, they're on the road. So they're playing Ferreira
for okay.
of the Portuguese league, and yeah, so that, I mean, I don't expect them. They're going to be traveling. I don't expect them to take any of these guys. I
No,
mean, Son, if any of those guys do play, then that would be a
that
concern
would be a big
for Wolves.
concern.
Like, it's almost like you look at the lineup for what they put out today. If they put out a soft lineup, I think that Spurs are going to be bet back to where they kind of were before this match gets going. So I think that you could scrape some value for the Wolves match at the weekend if you just really take a look at who Nuno wants to put out there. I don't see any risk of playing those guys. I would just play the youngsters, get through it, and yeah, I mean, it actually might be a decent look to look at the Portuguese side today.
Yeah, exactly. So this game, it sounds like it's a stay away for both of us, but it also sounds like it's a lineup checker. So make sure you're following both of us Twitter. Obviously, our Twitter handles are down there in the middle of the screen. All right, let's move over now to Arsenal versus Chelsea. I'll just go first. I mean, I'm not getting trapped into the name of Arsenal. Like I know Arsenal's got the name, but to me there is a huge gap currently right now between Chelsea and Arsenal. Arsenal needs to complete that transfer for Odegaard. They looked good towards the back end of the season when they had them as their playmaker sitting in there in the middle of the pitch. They really need to get that transfer over. Again, last week I know they didn't have Bung Yang, I know they didn't have Lacazette, but yeah, now you're going up. It's a team that maybe one of the best, defensively in the league. We talked about all the under 2.5s. That's because you don't score on Chelsea. You do not score on them. Lukaku's probably going to play. You think Lukaku plays? I think he plays, right?
I think he probably plays. I wonder if he starts. It's
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing because yeah, we'll talk about that here in a
yeah.
second. But yeah, it's yeah.
If he does start, I think it's for sure an upgrade over Timo Werner. I mean, you got a guy that can obviously play his back to the goal. He's good at holding the ball up and letting the guys come to him. You lose a little bit of pace, but I think you're going to get a lot better finishing than over Timo Werner. The one thing from being a United fan is Lukaku, unless he fixed it when he was in Italy, first touch is terrible. I mean, his first touch when he
Oh
was a
yeah.
United player is god awful. So, but I think he can make over that with just his size, his physicality, his prowess that he can leading that line. So I expect Lukaku to play. He'll either play like the last 30, or I think he'll just get the first 70, something like that. So I'm expecting Chelsea to handle business. I haven't seen anything from Arsenal, pack into last year. Something I know last season's fixture was close and Chelsea didn't get the win, but I'm going to Chelsea and over 1.5. I talked about it on my daily show, finding a bet that works for Chelsea. Under 2.5 may not work this season because I think they're going to get a lot of more goals with Lukaku leading the line. Win to nils are just uncomfortable sweat. So I think Chelsea and over 1.5 could be the angle. And this week it comes in at plus money. So yeah, I'm going to go with that bet this weekend. Chelsea and over 1.5 at plus money.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about Arsenal, I feel like, for an hour. What are they doing just in general? I mean, they sell Emi Martinez last year, who's just a top five goalkeeper in this league, and now they're going to overpay for Ramsdale from Sheffield. So are they having Leno concerns? Odegaard is a big addition that gives them another creative player like Smith Rowe, and I think that that's a good move, but I'm going to pick on him here because I don't think that their lineup's ready. When you're seeing Gabriel, he's not ready. They just have backline troubles right now. What is the situation going on with Aubameyang and Lacazette? Is it because of sickness, or is it because of supposedly they were doing some things in the training ground that Arteta was not all about and did not like? And so I think that there is so much turmoil here with Arsenal, and I know they're at home. They normally get the better of Chelsea. They normally play Chelsea extremely well, but that is a full Arsenal lineup. That's when you're getting an A+, and that's the past Arsenal. I mean, now we're looking at the present and the future Arsenal. It just the future looks bleak for this squad, and I think it's a good time to pick on them right now with Odegaard just coming in. I don't think that he's going to be ready. Smith Rowe was, like I said earlier in the show, he was the only one that had a backbone on the road against Brentford. And Chelsea, if Lukaku starts, then I do have a tiny bit of a concern for my bet because I like Chelsea and I like the under 3.5 at plus 140 just because I do think that they're going to keep it tight. They are on the road. Hopefully Arsenal can at least keep this one tight enough to so this doesn't explode in terms of goals because this fixture does generally produce goals. But yeah, I mean, it's just I just don't understand really what Arsenal are doing all around. And yeah, I mean, Lukaku, top 5 striker in the world for me. He has figured out some things. Maybe his first touch still isn't there, but he is just a powerhouse. He's a major upgrade on Werner, and he will make them title contenders for sure here this season. So yeah, I mean, Chelsea were able to beat Arsenal on the road last year at the Emirates. Why can't they do it here? Arsenal muddied the waters up, and I think they got a very fortunate and lucky victory on the road at Stamford Bridge late last season. I just don't see it right now. I think this is a good time to pick on them. Chelsea and under 3.5. But again, if you don't feel like complicating it, don't complicate it then. Just take the minus 125 on Chelsea and just go with it because I do think that they grab 3 points here.
Yeah, that well said right there. The money line is well within normal value. So, yeah, minus 125. No, that's a good point right there. All right, and the last fixture is on Monday afternoon or Monday night if you're watching us from over across the pond there in England. You got West Ham, you got Leicester. I see goals in this matchup. I see goals. The only thing that makes me nervous is Brendan Rodgers. Just a little tricky. I mean, he can have some funny score lines and just I think it's generally tough for me, at least in how I've bet him in the past, is trying figure him out. I think this will be cagey at times. I do, even though I think there will be goals, I think it'll be hotly contested. I think after the top 4, and we all know who those top 4 clubs are, now you start getting into your Spurs, your West Ham, and your Leicester, kind of that next group right there, kind of that 5 through 7 range. I think these clubs won't want to, give an inch to either one of the, the opposition right there. So obviously West Ham, you said it, you cashed the bet last week, looked really good, and just attacking Newcastle all throughout those 90 minutes and getting that 4-2 win. Again, Leicester won 1-0. I just see goals, and because you can get both teams to score at minus 150, that's a safe enough bet to me. Not trying to figure out who's going to win or maybe an over. I think both of these clubs get on the score sheet. So at both teams to score at minus 150, that's where I'm at with this game.
I couldn't agree more. I think that it's more about just finding the both teams a score angle and not caring who wins because I think that either side can win. I think you made a great point on Brendan Rodgers. He is a tough one to figure out, and I'll tell you why. It's because when you have the likes of like Fofana out, so he is going to then play or set up more defensively to try and compensate for that loss. And so that does sometimes muddy the waters up, and it makes them probably not as, catching on the eye. But, they got the job done last week. They've had a good start to the season, winning against City at Wembley, and then, scraping a victory last week at home. I mean, look at the last time these two teams played, 3-2 to West Ham. The time before that, 3-0 to West Ham, 4-1 to Leicester, 2-1 to Leicester, 2-2, 1-1. Both teams to score generally comes in. This one has just missed my card right now, but I really think, you can get the both teams to score in over 2.5 at around even money. I cannot find a way. I think that I'm going to be betting this one on Monday. It's West Ham are brilliant. They are free flowing. It sounds like they're going to dip their toes back in for Lingard. It sounds like Lingard might be on his way out towards the end of the window. And Leicester, they just have enough. They have enough up top to cause West Ham some problems. I would lean West Ham here, though, if I had to pick a side. I really would, just from how they're firing right now. But, yeah, it's more about I don't care who wins. Both teams will score over 2.5. I think it cashes.
I think it does well. I'm with you. It's not on my card yet, but that's because I consider Monday like a new week, and I'll get those bets in starting next week. So you got to make sure, again, you're following us both on Twitter. We'll probably both add us. All right, let's put up our official bets. Let's get our name and our Twitter down. Let's throw up Matt's. Let's throw up mine. I'll run through mine first. I'm going to go ahead and take Chelsea and over 1.5. Again, you can get that at plus money at plus 123. I do like Liverpool. Both teams, or Liverpool to score in both halves. I think Matt had a good angle last week, so I'll go ahead and piggyback off his winner at minus 125. I think City gets the win. I think I obviously will keep that clean sheet at minus 140. It's a little juicy. You'll be uncomfortable. You'll be sweating like hell, but I do think you'll get to that cash register at the end of the day. Leeds and Everton, both teams will score in over 2.5. Not getting off that bet in the Leeds game anytime soon at minus 118. Manchester United, give yourself kind of a free roll. If you think they're going to win, give yourself a free roll at plus money, and you can get that on the minus 1 Asian handicap. And then how about a 3-team parlay, right? Just sprinkle a little bit. We all like parlays. You got Liverpool going up against Burnley, City going up against Norwich, United going up against Southampton. You can get that parlay at plus 135. What are going to be your official bets for match week 2?
Yep, I'm going with Leeds and Everton. Both teams are scoring over 2.5 right there. Carbon copy, really, copy and paste with you. The only concern would be if Calvin Phillips does start this match, and we'll see if Leeds, want to play a little bit more solidly like they did at the back end of last season. But yeah, I just think that Everton are going to be able to expose them on the counterattack a bit. Villa, Newcastle, both teams to score. It's at minus 125, so it's a little bit better price than that. But yeah, I just think that Newcastle have what it takes to score a goal against almost anyone in this league when you're looking at that front four. And Villa, they should be able to find the back of the net against this poor Newcastle defense. United and over 1.5, I see them having way too much for Southampton here, and Chelsea and under 3.5. I think that it stays tight because it's such a big rivalry, and that Chelsea do get over the line, though, on the road here. And at plus 140, I think that there's some value there.
All right. Well, I apologize for my fat fingers. He's got that at minus 125. I actually do like your Manchester United bet more. I think they're going to get 2 goals, and if for some reason they only win, 3-2, 2-1, yours will obviously cash or mine's a push. So if you're looking at maybe one of those bets there, that Manchester United, I actually lean Matt's. I think he's got maybe the better angle up in that game. All right, guys, I've seen all the likes come through as you guys are watching the show. Thank you for all the likes. Go check out BetUS. Get a great sign-on bonus, and make sure you come back next week. We'll talk about all of our winners, recap match week 2, and do it all over again. Matt, enjoy the games, man. We'll see you next week.
You too. It's going to be great. Thanks, Jason.
See ya.